Hey guys, tonight we're traveling far across time-past dynasties, dust, and footnotes to ancient China, where you, of all people, are about to become a eunuch in the imperial palace. That's right, not a general, not a poet, not a mystical sagnope. You're about to lose a very specific set of equipment and gain, well, status, sort of. It begins in the faint gray hours before dawn. You wake in a stone cell, cold as forgotten soup. Your breath puffs visibly, and your legs are still trembling from last night's dinner or lack thereof. You're lying on thin straw and thicker dread. Somewhere, a bell rings. You're not sure if it's real or just the throbbing in your skull. Outside, the corridor smells of iron, vinegar, and old silk, exactly the kind of bouquet you never wanted to memorize. There's a low murmur beyond the barred wooden door. Footsteps, purposeful, no chatter. A shadow enters. He's dressed in brown robes and wears an expression best described as resigned butcher. This is the man who will usher you into your new life, but first he must end a part of the old one. You swallow hard. You're not noble by birth, not particularly lucky by nature. You're the third son of a farmer whose debts outgrew his rice fields. Becoming a court eunuch was a suggestion, strongly worded, lightly forced. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Drop it in the comments below. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're led down a corridor that curves like a dragon's spine, each turn revealing less mercy than the last. Outside, a faint fog crawls across the palace gardens, trailing the scent of jasmine and charred incense. You're taken to a courtyard. There's a low platform, a wooden table, a bowl cloths. You're instructed to sit on a stone block that has worn smooth from centuries of trembling bodies. The man speaks softly, not unkindly, but firmly. It is better to faint now, he says, than later. Your eyes flicker toward the other side of the courtyard, where two other young men, perhaps boys, sit, swaddled in bandages. One hums to himself. The other stares at nothing. You decide you will hum later. For now, you're busy pretending your heart isn't trying to flee through your throat. The process, brutal, blunt. A clean slice was ideal, but not guaranteed. There was no anesthesia, less you count the peach wine you were denied this morning. Only vinegar, old cloth, and whatever gods happened to be in the mood to help. And now you are helped. Onto the table, you wince at the rustle of fabric as your robe is adjusted. The smell of the vinegar is sharp, bracing, really. The man lays a hand on your chest, steadying. He mutters something about quietness in pain. You, meanwhile, are negotiating internally with a pantheon of ancestral spirits. It happens. Pain doesn't arrive, explodes. Then, strangely, it disappears, like a skipped heartbeat. In its place, pressure, heat, then cold, then something that could be relief, or just shock, helpfully numbing. The cloths are pressed tight. You are bundled like a dumpling and carried back to the infirmary wing, where you'll be monitored closely for days. Fun historical fact to distract you. In some dynasties, the removed organs were returned to the eunuch in a jar, like a souvenir or a receipt. This was considered honorable, since one might request to be buried whole. You do not get that option. Some scholars argue whether this entire practice began with devotion to ritual purity, or as a grotesque loophole for allowing men into the women's quarters. Others say it was just bureaucracy meeting body horror. Either way, you're now part of a very exclusive, very controlled population. Some eunuchs will rise to immense power. Others will polish trays for 40 years. You don't know which fate is yours. Yet, for now, you sleep, or try to. The bed is less straw than wood, and your dreams are choppy. You think of your family. You think of songs. You think, very briefly, of jumping up and fleeing. But then you remember, you can't even sit upright without blacking out. The next few days pass like slow water. A nurse applies paste that smells like boiled herbs and disappointment. You are fed broth so bland it could offend a cloud. But you live. That everyone agrees is step one, and you are not alone. Around you, other newly cut candidates shuffle in linen gowns, murmuring prayers, comparing bandages. One boy jokes that he can hear better now. No distractions. You try to laugh. It comes out as a wheeze. Eventually, you are able to stand. Without swooning, the first steps are oddly floaty. Your balance feels changed, as though something essential in your core was removed. It was, you practice bowing, kneeling, pouring tea without spilling. Not because anyone asks you to, but because you know what's coming. Soon, the palace will demand poise, silence, invisibility. You look at your hands, steady, pale, uncalloused, the hands of someone who now belongs to history's strangest professional class. The day arrives when your name is called. You're no longer in the infirmary, though the bandages still cling to you like guilt. A short man with an impressively high voice barks out something about inspection and station. You don't ask for clarification, you just follow. Down another hallway. This one glows with pale sunlight that filters through lattice windows. You catch a glimpse of a crane, tall and unbothered, standing in the courtyard below. You envy its dignity. The chamber you enter is clean, very clean. In the center, a low table. Beside it, a eunuch with robes far finer than yours and a beard, so precisely trimmed it seems embroidered. He doesn't smile. He gestures. You kneel. There's a pause, a kind of ceremonial silence. Then, with surprising tenderness, he leans forward and lifts the hem of your robe. Yep, this is happening, see, before you can serve the emperor or even his sixth favorite. Concubine new must be certified, physically, officially. That means someone checks your vacancy, and no, this isn't the worst job in the palace. That honor likely belongs to the guy who scrapes bat dung off calligraphy scrolls in the archives. He completes the inspection quickly. You feel like a melon tapped for ripeness. He marks something on a bamboo slip and mutters, vinegar successful, healing average, no rot. The outer court, not quite the inner chamber, where political games are played, but not the laundry room either. Think of it as the polite lobby to imperial chaos. You're handed a fresh robe, brown, with a subtle silver lining and a thin headband. To mark your rank, lower tier, novice, glorified errant shadow. That evening, you're placed in a sleeping hall with others like you. Rows of cots, whispered jokes, a faint aroma of liniment and steamed turnips. The camaraderie is strange, hesitant, born from mutual mutilation and shared absurdity. One eunuch, older, leans over and says, They say if you breathe in rhythm with the emperor's heartbeat, you'll live longer. You raise an eyebrow. No. One knows what that rhythm is, he adds. So just try to stay invisible. Over the next few days, you're put through what historians generously call orientation. You learn palace protocol, how to bow with exactly the right slope, how to speak without forming opinions, and how to memorize the names of at least 30 princesses you will never, ever speak to directly. One mainstream fact: eunuchs in the Ming and Qing dynasties weren't just servants. They often held real administrative power. Some oversaw vast territories or managed entire government departments. But they got there by enduring decades of bowing, whispering, and not dying. The food is better now, sweet congee. Bits of roasted duck, fragrant tea served in porcelain, so thin you can see your fingerprint through it. You sip carefully. You've seen what happens to those who drop things. You're also taught how to walk, seriously, not too fast, not too slow. Your heel must kiss the ground, not slap it. Scholars debate whether this originated from the imperial need for elegance or simply a fondness for watching people suffer. Eventually, you're assigned your first real duty. You are to accompany a small procession to deliver an ivory fan to Lady Zun, one of the secondary consorts. You will carry the lacquer box, open it only upon her command, and bow while doing so. That's it. Easy, right? Except the pathway to her quarters winds through 4 corridors, 2 pavilions, and one very curious monkey who likes to throw jujubes at passersby. The fan is wrapped in brocade. You hold it like a relic. Halfway there, your hands begin to sweat. You wipe them on your sleeve when no one's looking. The head eunuch leading the procession notices but says nothing. He has the quiet menace of a man who once turned someone into soup for wearing the wrong belt sash. Lady Zun receives the fan. With barely a nod, she doesn't look at you. She doesn't have to. Her hair is arranged with 9 golden pins shaped like phoenix feathers. Her sleeves trail the floor like mist. You bow so deeply you smell the floor polish as you leave. A younger concubine, barely older than you, smiles at you. Not flirtatiously, not cruelly, just a smile. It's the first genuine human warmth you felt since your arrival. You think about that smile later, while folding laundry in the shadow of a marble lion. You wonder if she meant it. You wonder if you imagined it. You wonder if any part of you can still be wanted, even in a world where your body has been politically edited. At night, lying on your mat, you dream of walking back through that courtyard, holding nothing but your own name. But you wake, and the palace is still there, and your name has been shortened to a number. Still, there's a sense, fleeting, fragile, that maybe you can navigate this world. That maybe, just maybe, the razor took away less than it seemed. Tomorrow, you will be posted to the Hall of Fragrance, where things are not nearly as pretty as they sound. But for tonight, you listen to the nightingales in the garden and breathe with careful, deliberate ease. The Hall of Fragrance smells like roses, opium, and bureaucracy. You've been reassigned not because you impressed someone, but because someone else fell ill from scented oil inhalation. Or that's the polite story. More likely, they said, the wrong thing about the wrong odor to the wrong nose. Your new duties involve preparing incense for the concubines' chambers, timing the burning to match ceremonial routines, and most glamorously cataloging which smells make which people sneeze. You quickly learn that nothing in the palace is simple. Even perfume has protocol. Lavender may be calming, but only if burned after the 7th chime. Ambergris is for imperial birthdays. Sandalwood, strictly reserved for post-rainy days. And if you ever confuse jasmine with ylang, may the ancestors have mercy on your nostrils. Your superior in this fragrant chaos is Eunuch by Talman, who walks with the grace of a crane and the voice of a flute. He speaks in riddles like, "Only the scentless know when the breeze arrives." You nod, as if enlightened. The real challenge, though, is not the smells, it's the waiting. Hours of standing by trays of powdered musk, listening for a bell that may or may not ring. You are background decoration, decorative humidity, a warm body in a cold system. And then, one night, the fever comes. It starts with a chill in your bones, then spirals into a full-body inferno. You are excused from duty and sent to the infirmary. Again, your old nurse recognizes you. "Back so soon," she quips, pressing a cool cloth to your forehead. You don't answer. You're too busy trying not to evaporate. Fevers after castration weren't uncommon in ancient China. Infection could linger for weeks, sometimes masked by palace tonics. You're pumped full of tea that tastes like scorched bamboo and despair. The physician arrives. He's old enough to have pickled Confucius and twice as skeptical. He taps your wrists, listens to your breath, and frowns thoughtfully. "Key imbalance," he mutters. "Or ghosts, ghosts." You croak. He nods sagely. Palace walls are thin. Regret leaks through. Historians still argue whether such diagnoses were medical, symbolic, or just an excuse to try another herbal experiment. Whatever the case, you get ghost cleansing soup for 3 days straight. It's gray, it jiggles. It's definitely not vegan. While you recover, time plays tricks. You start hearing things, whispers in the beams, distant laughter in empty rooms, footsteps that never arrive. Maybe it's the fever, or maybe it's the lives lived and lost in these same halls before. You're not the first eunuch to shiver on this cot. You won't be the last. The fever breaks, but you're left changed. Not just weaker, lighter, like something's been peeled away. You return to the hall of fragrance, only now you move slower, you speak softer, and you start noticing things others don't. Which incense makes Lady Shan's eyes twitch? Which foot eunuch buy favors when he walks? Which servant girl always leaves with an extra lotus bun hidden in her sleeve? Details, they keep you alive. One evening, while preparing a tray of oils, you overhear 2 concubines discussing a dream they both had of a white dragon flying backward over the garden. Ominous, apparently. You file it away. Not for gossip, for survival. Dreams matter here. Omens matter. If someone thinks your scent arrangement brought bad luck, it's your neck. You take to memorizing the almanac, the color for auspicious Tuesdays, the unlucky directions after sunset, which phase of the moon requires lemon balm, and which demands silent bowing. And slowly, so slowly, you become reliable, not liked, not celebrated, but tolerated, which is, frankly, a promotion. Your body is still healing. Some days, your legs shake when you kneel. Other days, your hands tremble when you light the incense, but no one says anything. Maybe they assume it's reverence. Maybe they're just too tired to notice. One afternoon, Eunuch by pauses beside you and whispers, "You no longer reek of desperation." Well done. You consider this a compliment. You begin to understand the real game of the palace. It's not about rising, it's about not falling. You also realize that silence is not absence. The most powerful eunuchs in history, Shao Gao, Wei Zhongxian, wielded silence like a sword. No shouting, just subtle influence, quiet terror. You're not terrifying, not yet, but you're learning. A quirky tidbit: some eunuchs were believed to develop keener hearing post-castration. You test this theory by eavesdropping on a conversation from the far side of the garden. All you catch is turtle soup again. So maybe not superhuman, but still fun to try. Then comes the moment that marks your first real turn. You're summoned not by eunuch, not by a footman, but by Lady Zun herself. You, specifically, you are to deliver her evening incense, personally. No explanation, no script, just you, a bronze bowl, and a puff of powdered rosewood. As you kneel before her, she waves away her maid. Her chamber is bathed in golden light, her robe the color of moonlit peaches. She doesn't look at you. She simply says, "You were the boy who bowed too deeply, weren't you?" You nod, a pause, then, softly, "I liked that." The incense crackles, and suddenly, you realize the court isn't just a place, it's a maze, a game, and maybe, just maybe, you've been dealt a better hand than you thought. You're assigned a new shift the next morning. It's subtle, no grand pronouncement, no trumpet of triumph, just a quiet note tucked beneath your breakfast tray. Report to the Vermilion Gate at second bell. That's closer to the inner court though. Imperial core, the buzzing hive, where the emperor's breath shapes policy, and one raised eyebrow can send a man into exile. You're not sure why you've been called there, but you don't ask. Not asking is the first lesson. You simply tie your belt and make your way through the peach-stone corridor, where the cobblestones remember centuries of soft shoes. The Vermilion Gate is taller than you imagined, not just in height, but in presence. Its red lacquer glows in the sunlight, flanked by guardian lions that look like they've already judged you unworthy. 2 guards let you through after barely glancing at your token. One sneezes. You resist. The urge to say, "Bless you." You've heard that was considered provincially rustic and could get you demoted to chicken coop duty. Inside, you're brought before a rotund eunuch in sea blue silk. He introduces himself as Master Liang. Master Liang does not walk, he glides. Somehow, his sleeves trail like banners, and his voice is as smooth as riverstone polished by centuries. "You're the incense boy who didn't drop the fan," he says, sipping from a teacup shaped like a gourd. "That's already more reliable than most." You bow. "Yes, master." "Don't be too agreeable," he murmurs, waving his hand. It confuses people. He gestures you closer. His chamber smells of ink, plum wine, and something else. Ambition, maybe. You're not sure what ambition smells like yet, but you suspect it's close to this. "You're being reassigned," he says. "You'll assist in the office of rites, daily errands, document delivery, ritual prep. No mistakes." You nod. "Good," he says. "Also, don't speak unless asked, and smile less." You look like someone who's just discovered soup. You are dismissed. Your new workspace, a narrow annex tucked between the Hall of Ceremony and the Court of Astrological Consultation. It smells like candle wax, oiled parchment, and ceremonial panic. you share it with two other eunuchs, Xiao Ping, who's always humming Ode to Dried Tofu, and Mo Lin, who hasn't blinked since you met him. Neither says much. That suits. You find. You learn fast. The Office of Rites is a machine of gears, powered by incense sticks, bloodline scrolls, and exactly timed bows. It governs festivals, sacrifices, imperial birthdays, ancestral rites. You never realized how many ways there were to kneel until you filed the guidebook. Mainstream historical fact. The Office of Rites was one of the 6 ministries of ancient China, controlling everything from court rituals to diplomatic ceremonies. And yes, every rice cake at New Year had to pass through a layer of approvals thick enough to cushion a fall. You carry scrolls, you deliver offerings, you memorize seating orders, so detailed they include whether the emperor's aunt prefers goose down or duck feathers in her back cushion. You don't ask why. There's comfort in the predictability. Until you're asked to assist with a ritual in the imperial ancestral temple, a big deal. You're given a tray to carry ceremonial jade rings placed on red silk. You practice your steps over and over again, guided by Master Liang's barked instructions and a diagram that looks suspiciously like a game of hopscotch played by ghosts. The day arrives. The temple is quiet, solemn. Your every step echoes like it's being judged. Incense, smoke curls in the air like ancient breath. You enter the main hall, eyes low, tray steady. You kneel at the exact square on the marble floor, raise the tray precisely shoulder height, and you sneeze. Not loud, not messy, but noticeable. The silence that follows is more painful than the act. A single cough somewhere in the gallery, then nothing. The ceremony continues. Later, Master Liang doesn't mention it. He just slides a packet across your work table. Inside, crushed chrysanthemum petals. For your nose, he says, without looking up. Imperial grade. You smile despite yourself. A quirky tidbit. Some eunuchs in high positions used scented satchels tied beneath their robes, not for style, but because they were required to stand so close to the emperor, who was notoriously picky about smells. One ruler even banned garlic palace-wide. Tragic. As your duties grow, so does your awareness. You start noticing patterns. Who leaves which meetings red-faced, whose handwriting trembles, which documents are always triple-checked. The palace may be steeped in ritual, but beneath the choreography is real tension. Historians still debate how much actual power eunuchs held at various dynasties. Some say they were puppets, others puppet masters. You begin to suspect both are true, just not always at the same time. One evening, while fetching a roll of golden thread from the storeroom, you stumble upon a moment. Lady Zun, again. She's alone, standing near a paper window, tracing something into the wooden frame with her finger. She hears you. Don't speak, she says. You don't slightly. Sometimes I pretend the emperor is just a man with ordinary socks. You blink. She laughs, soft and almost bitter. Imagine him with a hole in the toe. How much less terrifying. You say nothing, but when you return to the office, you can't stop smiling. You're not sure if she's lonely, clever, or both, but she's watching you. That's dangerous. Or helpful. Possibly both. The next week, you're given your own chest for robe storage. With a lock. That's about as close to a promotion as anyone dares acknowledge. One night, while polishing a lacquer tray, Xiaoping leans over and whispers, there are only two kinds of eunuchs here, the ones who serve tea, and the ones who decide who gets tea. You nod, slowly. You know which one you want to be. Your days settle into a rhythm strange, yes, but oddly soothing. Each morning begins with the scent of citrus soap and the soft rustle of linen robes. You dress precisely, even though no one has time to notice. You adjust your belt, check the jade toggle dangling from your sash, and recite the opening lines of the morning prayer knot for devotion. But because the acoustics of the corridor make your voice sound respectable, you're now trusted with scrolls sealed in red wax. You carry them from the Office of Rites to the Department of Astronomy, to the Ministry of Works, even once to the dreaded censorate where you swear the officials breathe in rhythm with paper. But your real job, the one that isn't written on any roster, is to observe. The corridors of the Forbidden City are louder than people think, not with noise, but with information. Footsteps tell stories. Sleeve rustles reveal hierarchy, and the distance between one servant's bow and another's hesitation. That gap can hold entire conspiracies. You become a master of knowing when not to be seen. There's a phrase, Master Liang once muttered after scolding you for stepping into sunlight too boldly. The best shadows cast no shape that sticks with you, so you start practicing silence like a skill. You walk softer, breathe shallower. Your presence becomes like steam, visible only when it condenses around something hot. One day, you're called to assist in the Hall of Jade Harmony, which, despite the soothing name, is where the most delicate court arguments are whispered: property, rights, dowry disputes. Whether the emperor's third cousin sneezed disrespectfully at an envoy from Tibet. You're there to refill tea and clear dust trays. That's it. But during one session, as officials murmur about the allocation of ceremonial silks, your ear catches something odd. Lady Zun has been requesting sandalwood every morning. Unseasonable, improper, one minister says. Perhaps a message. Another replies, you don't move. But your mind races. Sandalwood season use was once a coded protest. In a past dynasty, it meant, I am being silenced. Quirky, obscure. But in this palace, quirks are warnings. You file it away, not just because of Lady Zun, but because someone else hears it. To Mo Lin. Yes, the blinkless eunuch from the Office of Rites. He's standing opposite you, staring straight ahead, but the corner of his eye tightens, just slightly. Later, he corners you near the incense storeroom. You heard it too, he says. You nod. He glances around, then slips something into your sleeve. A folded note, no wax seal, just a pressed orchid. Between 2 pages, you don't open it until nightfall. It's a poem, 4 lines, cryptic, rhyming only in dialect. You understand none of it, but the gesture that means something. Mo Lin is inviting you into something deeper. Historians still argue whether palace eunuchs functioned as spies by design or by necessity. Many were illiterate upon arrival, and later trained in secret to read, memorize, and even forge documents. A eunuch who could quote a lost Confucian commentary and vanish into the laundry room. That was political gold. A few days later, you're reassigned again. You now assist with what's euphemistically called gentle surveillance. That means walking the concubine gardens under the guise of sweeping, folding robes, fetching forgettable. things while listening. You're good at it, better than most. You begin mapping the palace in your head not by architecture, but by behavior. Where do people walk faster? Which windows are opened when certain guests arrive? Who always coughs before lying? And somewhere along the way, you become calm. Not content, exactly, but fluent. Fluent in subtext. Fluent in power that doesn't raise its voice. Still, it's not all grand plots and delicate whispers. You once had to remove a cat that had nested in the drum tower and refused to leave, unless bribed with pickled eel. You handled it with grace. The cat now follows you occasionally. You call it Minister Meow. Then there's the bathhouse incident. You're sent to deliver towels simple. You arrive to find 3 senior eunuchs arguing over who miscounted the ceremonial bath salts. Voices are raised. 1 towel is thrown. You retreat before being noticed, or so you think. That evening, a note arrives with your supper. Next time, stay. Witnesses matter. It's unsigned, and that's how you learn another lesson. Presence is currency. The more places you appear, without causing disruption, the more your name floats. You become the kind of eunuch who is useful, and useful men, even ones without heirs or titles, are remembered. One mainstream detail. In the later Ming dynasty, some eunuchs managed imperial workshops, collected taxes, and even led military expeditions. Their power came not from birth, but from competency and proximity. You're still far from that level, but your orbit is tightening. And then, one evening, as the stars bloom over the palace and the peach trees whisper against the lacquered eaves, a voice calls your name from the shadows. Lady Zuan again. She stands barefoot on the garden stones, holding a sealed scroll. This, she says softly, was meant for the emperor, but it's safer in your hands. You hesitate, then take it. The parchment is warm from her touch. Whatever's inside, your life just changed, and you've never been more awake. You don't open the scroll right away, not because you're scared. Well, not just because, but because scrolls in this palace are like rivers. Once you're in, there's no getting back to shore. So you tuck it into your sleeve, next to the part of your heart that still remembers how to panic discreetly. You return to your sleeping quarters like nothing happened. Nod to the gatekeeper. Wave at Minister Meow. Slip into your mat with the scroll still uncracked. Courtyard settles into crickets and distant flute practice. You finally untie the thread and unroll the parchment beneath your blanket. It's not a message. It's a list. 7 names. 5 of them you know, ministers, scholars, mid-level advisors. One was once rumored to have forged a dragon seal. Another is Lady Jen's older cousin. All have influence. All have enemies. The 6th name is blurred, as if someone had written it, then thought better. The 7th name, yours. You sit bolt upright, then lie back down, very slowly. Your name is written small, like an afterthought, but it's there, and it's circled. Whether it means you're trusted or targeted, you can't say. Historians still argue whether such palace lists were meant for loyalty tests, blackmail, or simply as a quiet tally of useful pieces. Either way, you've been drafted into a game you didn't ask to play. The next morning, Master Liang summons you with his usual dramatic flair, waving a fan made of egret feathers and speaking as if rehearsing for a puppet show. Time you saw how the inner court breathes, he says, sipping wine before noon. Come, you follow, past red gates, through incense-thick corridors, into a room filled with silk slippers, hundreds of them, tiny, jewel-toned, ribboned, and arranged by size and rank. It's the slipper registry, and yes, it's real. Here, each concubine's footwear is logged, assigned, and rotated. Apparently, one's slippers are a form of political signal. A brighter ribbon might mean favor, a worn sole. Neglect, you learn to catalog them, but not just by thread count, by trajectory. Which slippers are brought out early? Who requests a second pair? Which attendants accidentally scuff the soles of their rivals? This is where surveillance becomes art. You begin to leave small notations. Nothing suspicious, just observations. Lady Chen favors the lotus-embroidered pair when meeting astrologers. Third, consort requested mirror polish 3 days running in Usually Master nods in approval, though he never says it aloud. He's a man who prefers compliments in the form of non-insults. Meanwhile, Lady Zuin doesn't acknowledge the scroll, but one afternoon you find a sandalwood chip on your desk, out of season, placed there deliberately. You burn it that evening. No smoke alarm, just the faintest scent of warning. The palace begins to shift around you. Suddenly, you're asked to deliver meals to chambers that were previously off-limits. You're included in quiet meetings where nothing is said, but everything means something. People start assuming you know things, so you start acting like you do. A quirky tidbit: eunuchs often invented their own sign languages to communicate. Across chambers silently, you learn the basics. 2 fingers brushed across the wrist means, listen tonight. A slight tap behind the ear. We're being watched. One night, while filing reports on incense allocations, you feel eyes on you. Molin. He stands in the corner like a paper ghost, then blinks. Finally, you're deeper than you look, he says. You smile. You blinked. He almost smiles. Almost. Then he gestures toward a stack of records. Those scrolls, they're false. Wrong accounts. You raise an eyebrow. Compare them to last month's, he adds. And just like that, you're inside the machine. Turns out, someone's been siphoning imperial resources, tiny amounts, but consistent. Lady Jen's name appears 3 times as a recipient of excess textiles. But the textile storerooms report no such dispatch. Either she's being framed, or she's far more involved than you thought. Historians still argue whether the fall of certain imperial concubines was the result of personal ambition or the puppet games of eunuch factions. You're starting to see how blurred those lines really are. You bring the discrepancy to Master Liang. He listens, then pours tea. Truth, he says, is useful only when timed correctly. You sip. It tastes like plums and secrets. The following week, a visitor arrives in the inner court, an envoy from the west, Persian by the look of him. He brings scrolls written in gold ink, spices wrapped in waxed cloth, and a miniature camel carved from jade. You are chosen to assist with the reception, not because you speak the envoy's tongue, you don't, but because you have the right face, meaning a face that reveals nothing. You stand beside the throne dais as the translator recites oaths of friendship, trade, and other polite fictions. The emperor doesn't speak, just nods. Then you see it. Lady Zun, standing off to the side, barely visible. She glances once at the envoy. He doesn't look back, but his hand flicks slightly, thumb to ring finger, a signal. Later, in the kitchens, you find an oil-stained note pinned to the underside of a spice crate. Jade holds memory. Seek the 7th slipper. You laugh under your breath, then stop, because you know what that means. In the registry, the 7th pair of Lady Jen's slippers is rarely worn. You've always wondered why. That night, under the cover of delivering sandalwood balm, you enter her quarters. You kneel, bow, present the balm. Then, quietly, you rise Turnridge for the slipper chest. The 7th pair is there. Lavender, silk, untouched. Inside, a tiny scroll, folded, sealed with wax, stamped in the shape of a crab. The court astrologer's mark. You pocket it and realize you're no longer just carrying messages. You are one. You hold the scroll like it might bite. A crab-shaped sea lod, but not random. The court astrologer, Master Who, was known for 3 things: incomprehensible star charts, unpredictable tea preferences, and a suspicious fondness for crustaceans. You'd once overheard him declare, "The crab walks sideways because it already knows what's ahead." Useful, not particularly memorable. Oh yes, you don't open the scroll immediately. You've learned the palace rewards patience in jade, sometimes in not dying. So you wait until you're back in your sleeping quarters, safe beneath your paper lantern and the rhythmic snores of Xiaoping. You break the seal with a hairpin. The message inside is simple, 3 lines, written in the astrologer's elegant, slanted brushwork. Jupiter in retrograde. Beware fire in still rooms. The turtle hides its pearls. She dreams of the southern lake. Poetry or code? Probably both. You commit it to memory, then burn the scroll. That very night, the hall of incense catches fire. You wake to shouting, bells, a blast of smoke so thick it tastes like panic. Eunuchs rush past with buckets, barefoot and wild-eyed. You throw on your robe and join the bucket line, not because you're brave, but because not helping would look suspicious. The flames are doused quickly, mostly smoke damage. No deaths, but it rattles the court. That hall held offerings, ceremonial records, and half a wall's worth of sandalwood tablets. Historians still debate whether the fire was accident or arson. Some blame an overfilled lantern. Others whisper of Lady Jen's growing circle and how heat always follows influence. The next morning, you're summoned by Master Liang. He looks tired, smells like conspiracy, he says, waving his sleeve through the smoky air. And I'm allergic. You wait, you're being reassigned. Again, don't get excited, it's paperwork, all day. In the archive of rights, you bow, but inwardly you're alert, because the archive of rights is where imperial decrees go to sleep. Scrolls, edicts, genealogies, dowry tallies, every word ever spoken officially ends up there stacked, sealed, sometimes forgotten. You arrive to find the place silent as snowfall. The dust dances in the light. Shelves climb higher than the eye can follow. Some say the archives contain secrets the emperors themselves have forgotten. Your supervisor here is Eunuch Han, who wears 3 pairs of spectacles stacked like architectural layers. He communicates mostly in grunts and smells faintly of mushrooms. Your task: sorting, copying, cross-referencing the 122-year incense. Budget: exciting stuff, but you're not really here for incense tallies. You begin looking, quietly, patiently. You look for references to southern lakes, for patterns in ceremonial footwear, for anything involving turtle pearls. One afternoon, deep in the back shelves, you find a scroll marked with a crab-sealed dot. It's a birth registry. One entry catches your eye. Lady Zun, noted as orphaned, South Provinces, sponsored by Chamber of Southern Lake. You blink. She wasn't born into court. She was brought here, sponsored, groomed. Maybe. You keep digging and stumble onto something stranger. A letter from over a decade ago, authored by a certain minister. When it's addressed to the emperor's mother, it reads, regarding the Southern Orphan Projects, select candidates from border provinces continue to display promise. Zuzhan exhibits exceptional recall. Subservience training successful. Will proceed with placement. Archive under charitable programs. You sit back. Lady Zuzhan wasn't a lucky concubine. She was chosen, trained, inserted. A long game, decades in the making. And now she's dreaming of lakes again, and lighting sandalwood signals, and sending slippers with astrologers' riddles. You exit the archive slowly. Outside, Molin waits. How he always knows where you are remains a mystery. Did you find it? He asks, not looking at you. You nod. You're in, he says. Now it gets harder. Over the next few days, things accelerate. Banquets are held with unusual frequency. Courtiers wear brighter silks, walk faster. The emperor is said to be ill. Nothing serious, of course, just digestive fluctuations, which, in palace speak, means someone's trying to guess his next move. You're assigned to banquet preparation. You work in the kitchens, folding napkins into the shape of bats, arranging peach slices into chrysanthemum patterns, checking the wine for clarity. That's when you meet your rival, Eunuch. Wu. You've seen him before. Tall, hawk-nosed voice, smooth as lacquer. He handles scrolls for the Ministry of Personnel and wears his headband just a shade tighter than protocol requires. You nod politely when you pass him near the spice rack. He doesn't nod back. Later, you find your name missing from the next banquet assignment list. Then your incense rations are halved. Then Xiao Ping is questioned about your night movements. You're being tested. You try to stay calm. After all, you've studied the palace long enough to know power is rarely seized all at once. It's chipped away, folded, steeped like tea. One evening, Master Liang pulls you aside. You've made an enemy, he says. Be flattered. It means you're visible. He leans in. But remember this, betrayal here isn't a knife, it's a cough. It starts soft, it spreads. You only notice when it's already in your lungs. That night, you sit in the garden, watching koi circle beneath the lily pads. Lady Zun appears without sound. She hands you a pouch of star anise and murmurs, add this to the wine. Not poison, just revelation. You nod and know, without being told, that the next banquet will not be just about food. It will be a test. And you little incense boy, paper carrier, scroll whisperer, you're about to pour a flavor that might tip the entire table. The next banquet arrives, draped in golden banners and uncertainty. Everyone pretends it's just another celebration, this time honoring the Empress Dowager's birthday. But the hall feels taut. Too many servants, too few smiles. The air smells less like peach blossoms and more like apprehension steeped in sesame oil. You're assigned to the wine. Of course you are. The pouch of star anise Lady Zun gave you waits in your sleeve, light as a secret. You know the plan, or at least your part in it. Add the spice to the emperor's wine just before the final course. That's it. Not poison, she said. Revelation. Whatever that means, you arrive early and go through the motions. Check the goblets, polish the pitchers, arrange the wine jars in descending order of bitterness. Yes, there's an official scale. You nod to the head sommelier, a round man who wheezes like a teapot and seems more concerned with grape clarity than court intrigue. You wait, you breathe, and then, when no one's looking, you add the star anise to the second goblet from the left, the one placed at the emperor's usual seat. And just like that, you've committed treason or therapy. You're honestly not sure. The banquet begins. The emperor enters, draped in red, crowned in phoenix feathers, expression unreadable. He sits. The nobles rise and bow. Music plays. It's flutes and zithers, a sound that normally helps digestion, but tonight just underscores the tension. Courses are served: duck tongues, candied lotus root, sea cucumber with regret. You float through the room, pouring wine, clearing dishes, offering napkins like apologies. The moment arrives. You watch the emperor raise the cup. He sips. He pauses. His brow twitches. You swear the air itself halts. Then he laughs. Not a deep laugh. Not a guffaw. Just a soft, surprised chuckle. What is this flavor? He asks, glancing around. The sommelier pales. Sire, it is anise, star anise, a foreign. I like it, the emperor says. Reminds me of something. His eyes glaze slightly, as if peering into the past. People laugh too nervously. Wine is poured for others. The moment passes, but not for you, because Lady Zun is watching and smiling. Later, in the hallway, a folded note is slipped into your sash. No seal, no signature. You moved the wind. The storm begins. You start to see changes. Subtle lady. Zun begins receiving earlier invitations to morning court ceremonies. Eunuch is reassigned to border census reviewer. Polite exile with heavy ledgers and no proximity to power. Master Liang starts referring to you as that one who's useful. And most curious of all, the emperor begins requesting star anise. In his evening wine, historians still argue whether Emperor Wanli's late reign saw a true shift in his personal advisors, or if his choices merely reflected deeper palace currents already at play. You, meanwhile, are in the current, possibly the undertow. Your responsibilities multiply. You're now tasked with overseeing the comfort staff rotation, a euphemism for those assigned to soothe, entertain, or distract favored concubines. You coordinate musicians, story readers, even the imperial goose tamer. Yes, that's real. You also begin carrying sealed messages, not between officials, but between rooms. Sometimes from Lady Zun to the astrologer, sometimes from Master Liang to the garden steward. Once, from a mysterious veiled visitor who hands you a scroll and says simply, "Deliver this to the Western kitchen." No questions. You don't ask. You've learned a quirky tidbit in one infamous Qing dynasty case. A eunuch named Gao was discovered to be the secret go-between for 4 rival court factions, each thinking he worked solely for them. His eventual punishment: promoted, then poisoned. Classic. One morning, you're summoned by the emperor himself, a rare occurrence. You enter the hall of supreme harmony, trembling, though your face reveals nothing. You kneel, head low, waiting. The emperor speaks softly, you added something to my wine. You do not answer. You are not asked to. It reminded me of the lake, he continues. When I was a boy. Before this, he waves vaguely, and you know he means the throne. She dreams of it too. He says, Zun, did she send the flavor? You choose your words carefully. She wishes your majesty peace, you say. Head still bowed, silence, then, good, let her keep sending it. You're dismissed. As you walk backward, out of the chamber never, turning your back you realize something important. You're now part of the story, not just a page-turner, a line in the ink. From that moment on, whispers follow you like shadows. Other, eunuchs bow slightly lower. Officials glance your way during court processions, and Lady Zun, she no longer smiles. She nods, respectfully, like an equal or a co-conspirator. Master Liang, when next you see him, greets you with a rare toast. 2 delicate flavors, he says, raising a cup, and even more delicate timing. You drink. The wine is warm. The aftertaste familiar, star anise. The koi pond doesn't speak, but tonight it listens. You sit on the edge of the stone balustrade in the moonlight, the hem of your robe trailing just above the water's edge. The palace is quiet in that deep, hollow way it only gets after midnight, when even the gossip is asleep, and only the ghosts stir. And stir they do. By the pavilion, there's movement, not footsteps, exactly more like rustling silk and vanishing whispers. You freeze. Not in fear, precisely. More like reverence. This is the part of the palace where things you don't understand tend to notice when you pay attention. Then you see them, figures, not entirely there, draped in ceremonial robes, too faded for reality. One leans over the koi pond, touching nothing, casting no reflection. Another stands beside the stone lion, head bowed, sleeves folded like morning fans. You blink, they're gone, just koi, just wind, just moonlight. But you feel them, lingering, just as you felt other things. Lately, the scrolls you touch seem warmer. The whispers you overhear seem unfinished. Your dreams, too, have taken on a texture, a softness, like cloth soaked in memory. Lady Zun once told you, the walls are thin here. Sometimes the past leaks through. You thought she meant politics. Now you're not so sure. A mainstream historical note. Many in the imperial palace believed certain pavilions, particularly those built near ancestral shrines or long-unused quarters, were haunted, not malevolently, but mournfully. A place that remembers too much can forget how to forget. You return to your quarters, a chill crawling just under your skin. You light a cone of ghost-clearing incense, not because you're superstitious, of course, just cautious. The next morning, the wind has shifted. Literally, the seasonal breeze, usually from the west, now drifts in from the east, carrying the smell of plum blossoms and damp stone. You're not the only one who notices. The gardeners talk about it. So do the scribes. Even the astrologer frowns up at the sky with mild confusion. Mo Lin corners you near the offering hall. There's movement, he says. You raise an eyebrow. From where? Not outside. Here. He's right. You see it in the changing guard rotations. In the fact that the Empress Dowager has suddenly requested her old nursemaid be reinstated. In the way the third prince, previously harmless and poetry obsessed, has begun attending ritual inspections with a disturbingly sharp smile. And in the way Lady Zun now sleeps with her chamber door unlocked. She's inviting something. Master Liang murmurs one evening, tossing starfruit peels to the fish, or daring it. Then comes the message, a crimson envelope, slipped under your tea bowl. No seal, no name, just a single sentence inside. Meet me at the garden pavilion. Midnight. Come alone. Of course you go. You always go. The pavilion looms ahead, carved from dark wood and ivory tiles, its roof curved like a dragon holding in a sigh. You arrive early, wait in the shadows, and then a soft rustle. A figure steps into view. Not Lady Zun, the Emperor, alone. No guards, no fanfare, just him in a plain robe, looking smaller. You've walked the palace longer than most realize, he says. You bow low. Your heart threatens to thump loud enough for the koi to hear. He doesn't speak again for a while, just watches the pond. Then, do you think they're real? The spirits? You answer carefully. I think the palace remembers. He nods, as if satisfied. They say, my grandfather cursed this place with a secret he never confessed, that he buried it beneath the lotus gate and whispered it into the koi. And now the gate is cracking. You don't ask what he means, because the pavilion begins to feel heavy, as if time is folding. He turns to you. I want you to find it. You blink. Find the secret. No, he says softly. Find the memory. A breeze rustles the willows. He presses something into your hand, a small jade comb. The key, he murmurs, then walks away into the mist. You stand there, holding the comb, trying not to shiver. Historians debate endlessly about the jade comb. Myths, symbols of favored concubines, tokens of ancestral dreams, even rumored keys to secret chambers beneath the palace. Most believe it was all metaphor. You now have reason to disagree. The next day, nothing is said, but everything feels different. Your tasks are routine scrolls, messages, tea. Yet everywhere you go, doors open faster, guards nod slower, and the fish in the koi pond start circling counterclockwise. That night, you dream of the pavilion again, but this time it's empty. No ghosts, just a soft voice, whispering a name you haven't heard yet, and that name is yours. You wake before dawn with the taste of jade in your mouth. Not literally, though you do check, just to be sure. The dream has left you restless. The whisper of your name still clings to your ears like the echo of an unopened letter. You rise, quietly, no breakfast. You tuck the jade comb into your sash, layered beneath your incense pouch, and a folded handkerchief that no longer smells like anything in particular. You tell no one where you're going, because you're not entirely sure yourself, but your feet, oddly, seem to know. They lead you past the servant halls and through the rear corridor behind the silk dye rooms, through a side garden once favored by the previous empress, the one who vanished after an unfortunate misunderstanding involving plum trees and politics. And then there it is, the Lotus Gate. It's smaller than you imagined, not some grand marble archway or dragon's gnarled portal, just a simple stone threshold, partially covered by creeping ivy and guarded by no one. Odd. You glance around. Stillness. Even the birds seem uncertain. The jade comb warms in your palm. You press it gently to the gate's carved relief, the pattern of a flowering lotus etched faintly in the weathered stone. Nothing happens. You sigh. Then, just as you start to step back, you hear a click, a barely audible shift, like a lock unlatching in the bones of the earth. The gate doesn't open. Exactly, it breathes. A thin seam appears where there was only stone, and beyond it a passage, narrow, dark, lit by the faint shimmer of moss and memory. You enter. Your footsteps are muffled. The air smells of aged parchment, old incense, and secrets too tired to be dangerous. The path winds downward. You count your steps because someone once told you that ghosts lose track of time but not rhythm. 50-7 steps later. You reach a chamber. Octagonal. Quiet. At the center. A pedestal with a single scroll sealed in wax shaped like focava. Lotus. You hesitate. Then pick it up. The seal breaks at your touch. Not crumbles. Melts. Inside. A confession written in trembling brushstrokes from the emperor's grandfather. He speaks of a child, his unconceived, not with an empress, but a concubine of foreign blood, hidden, raised in the southern lake region, officially erased, unofficially watched. Lady Zhen. You sit. Hard. The scroll goes on. He speaks of guilt, of dreams haunted by a girl with silver eyes and a voice like reed flutes, of a promise to keep her close, even in future generations. She would not rule, but she would be allowed to shape. Rule. So long as no one else ever learned. And now you have. Historians still argue whether Lady Zun was ever anything more than a concubine with good instincts and better timing. But if this scroll is real, and it feels real, she's more than that. She's imperial, and the emperor knows. You return the scroll to the pedestal. You're not foolish enough to pocket imperial confessions. Some truths are too heavy to carry upstairs. You exit the chamber, one step at a time. The jade comb, still warm, above ground. The palace seems brighter, too bright. Eunuch Wu is waiting for you near the kitchens. He doesn't smile. Walk with me, he says. You do, through familiar halls, now unfamiliar. His silence wraps around you like a snake in mid-constriction. Tell me something, he finally says. What do you think she wants? You know who he means. You consider. Then answer carefully. Control, quietly, with deniability. He nods. Impressed. She's clever, he says, and dangerous. And now, she's testing how deep your loyalty runs. You blink. You're working with her, he chuckles. No, but I understand her. Then he stops, turns, and says, be careful. That's all. No threats, just the kind of warning that smells like truth. That evening, Mo Lin brings you tea and sits beside you in silence. After a long moment, he speaks. We're all pawns, he says. But some pawns reach the other side of the board. You ask, and then? Then they're queens, he says. And everyone starts watching. The wrong pieces. Later, while walking near the garden pavilion, you notice something strange. The koi pond. Empty. No fish. No water. Just smooth stone and a single lotus bloom. Real. A trick or a sign. You don't know, but you do know this. The ghosts in this palace don't rattle chains. They leave rooms, and when they do, you're expected to enter. Morning arrives with a whimper. Gray skies, sour rice porridge, and an uneasy hum among the staff. Like someone tuned the entire palace. Just a note off. You feel it before anyone says it. Change is coming. The emperor hasn't appeared in public for 3 days. The Empress Dowager has requested more silks than usual. Even the ducks in the imperial pond are waddling with more urgency. Strange times, you spend the early hours in the records office, cross-checking ceremonial attendance, logs tedious, except when they're not. Zhuan has been present at 6 of the last 8 private astrology sessions. That wouldn't be strange, except those sessions are supposed to be between the Emperor and Master, who alone, technically forbidden from entering that wing at all. You file this mentally under unfiled secrets and return to your morning duties. A bell rings once, twice, then once again. That's not ceremonial, that's a summons. You arrive in the northern wing where Master Liang awaits. He's holding a robe, not just any robe. This one is soft gray, with a white silk trim and embroidered clouds along the hem. It's the livery of the Emperor's personal attendant, extremely limited, extremely visible role. He doesn't smile as he hands it over. "Congratulations," he says. "You're now the closest invisible person in the Empire." You change carefully and report to the private chamber of the Emperor himself. It's quiet, too quiet. Inside, you find the ruler of the known world sitting on a low stool, surrounded by brush pens, unfinished poems, and an empty wine jug. He looks up. "Come," he says. You do. He hands you a folded note. It's addressed to Lady Zun. "Deliver this, personally, no one else." You nod. He adds, "And if she doesn't answer the door, don't knock again." That's new. You find her at the Pavilion of Swans. She's alone, brushing her hair. Her eyes, normally soft, are sharp today. You kneel, offer the note. She takes it, reads it, folds it, then burns it in the oil lamp beside her without a word. Smoke curls toward the rafters. She looks at you. "Do you believe in fate?" You don't answer. "Good," she says. It doesn't care. That night, the Emperor calls again. Not for wine, not for ceremony. For you. He's pacing. The stars say there's unrest. He laughs, bitterly. The stars always say that. "Then, would you kill for me?" You blink, "Sire. I asked if you would kill," he repeats. "Not with a blade, with silence, with misdirection, with forgetting the right thing at the right time." You pause. "Yes," he exhales. "Then I've chosen correctly." You're dismissed. Later, in your sleeping chamber, you find another message, slipped under your mat. No signature, just a single word. "Tomorrow." No punctuation, no instructions, but your gut knows something will happen. You sleep in your robe, sitting upright against the wall, heart hammering like a festival drum, muffled under silk. And then it's morning, and everything is wrong. Guards everywhere, courtiers running, eunuchs summoned and dismissed in rapid succession. Someone poisoned the Emperor's breakfast, not fatally, but dramatically enough to cause panic. The palace shudders. You're summoned to the inner sanctum. There, Master Liang, Mo Lin, and 3 senior officials await. They look at you, only you. "He's asked for you," one says, "and only you." You enter the Emperor's chamber. He's pale, sweating, gripping a towel like it holds divine answers. "Sit," he croaks. You do. He gestures to a chest, inside letters, dozens of them, hundreds, all addressed in the same hand, all from Lady Zun. You recognize the script. You also recognize the danger, he says. "Read one." You pick one at random. It's a poem, simple, melancholy, laced with longing and coded phrases only 2 minds could understand. "Do you think she loves me?" he asks. "This is a test." You say yes, but she may love the throne more. He exhales, then laughs then weeps. That evening, you deliver a scroll to Lady Zun. She reads it silently, then looks up. Did he cry? You hesitate, double quotes. Yes. She nods. Then, it's almost time. The palace hushes after sundown. Even the birds hold their breath. You dream of clouds folding into themselves. And, in the distance, a single slipper lavender, silk, floating across. Still water. You wake to drums. 3, slow beats. 1, quick, the signal, it's happening. The drums echo across the courtyards, like heartbeats carved from stone. 3, slow. 1, quick. The signal hasn't been used in years, maybe decades. Officially, it means imperial procession, unexpectedly postponed. Unofficially, secrets is suddenly very, very alert. You dress quickly, your hands oddly calm. Your robes go on like second skin. You reach for your sash and feel the weight of the jade comb still hidden there. Somehow, it feels heavier tonight. Or maybe you're heavier with everything you now know. Outside, the palace is moving, not panicking, not yet, just shifting. Couriers sprint quietly. Doors that are always closed are now half open. A cat you've never seen before races past you with a red ribbon in its mouth. You follow the ribbon because why not? This is the kind of night when even riddles left by cats might matter. It leads you to the plum pavilion there. Lady Zun is waiting. She's not dressed like a concubine tonight. She wears morning gray hair, down, no ornaments, only a small crimson mark at her templa. Once reserved for queens in mourning. She sees you and speaks without preamble. He's stepping down. You blink. What? The emperor. Tonight or tomorrow. He'll say it's for health. He'll say the stars advised him. But really, he's done, tired, alone, and convinced the throne belongs to someone who still believes in it. You feel your knees go soft. Who, you ask? She smiles. The fourth prince. You hesitate. Not your son. No, she says, but my student. And that's when it clicks. She's not his lover. She's his architect. Historians debate whether concubines ever held real political agency. You now know the answer. Not all did, but the ones who learned the rules then rewrote them. They became forces of nature. You ask, and the emperor agreed. He wants peace, she says. He thinks this is it, and if it's not, she shrugs. Then it's your job to make it look like it is. You are handed a scroll, sealed in white wax, to be read aloud at dawn, she says, no matter what happens. You tuck it into your sleeve and feel the weight of destiny settle across your spine like wet silk that night. You don't sleep. You walk through the library pavilion, where a candle burns unattended beside a half-translated text about phoenixes, through the kitchen courtyard, where not a single pot clatters, past the embroidery hall, where women once whispered over rose thread and now sit silent, waiting. You find Mo Lin beneath the weeping plum. He speaks without looking at you. Tomorrow, we stop being what we were. You nod and become history, he says. The palace doesn't hum that night. It listens. At sunrise, the ceremony begins, not the kind with drums and dragons and 10,000 silk sleeves. A small one in the ancestral chamber. Only 20 people. You're one of them. The emperor sits, dressed simply. He looks relieved, like a man who's finally set down a heavy sword. Lady Zun is beside him, not close, but not far. You step forward when called. Open the scroll, read, your voice shakes. Only once on the word abdicate, but you recover. You say the name of the new ruler. You say the old titles one last time. You finish. The scroll is burned, ashes taken by the wind, and just like that, the empire changes. No fireworks, just breath. The fourth prince kneels, accepts, rises. His eyes meet yours. He nods, barely, then turns to Lady Zun and bows. Once, deeply. The rest follow. She never touches the throne, but everyone knows where the power came from that night. The koi pond is filled again. The fish are returned, swimming in circles. Oblivious to dynastic tremors, you sit at the edge, slipperless, and whisper into the water. Did we do it? The pond does not reply, but you feel the answer ripple back. Through your souls, yes, and now. Now you must keep the peace you helped forge. That's the harder part. Peace, it turns out, is just another kind of performance. There are no more conspiracies, no more night scrolls or poisoned rice bowls. At least not this week. But the palace still buzzes. Only now the whispering is softer, polished, practiced. The emperor, formerly the fourth prince, has taken the throne, and you're still exactly where you've always been, at the side of power, almost seen, almost safe. The young emperor shows signs of promise. He listens. He doesn't sneer. And he has an unusually good memory for names. That alone makes him more beloved than half his predecessors. But he's also green, in the way that makes you nervous. He hesitates before signing edicts. He rereads reports 3 times. He still writes poetry in the margins of military orders. One afternoon, he summons Eunuch to carry, not to deliver, but to sit. He wants to talk. I don't know how to be feared, he says. You blink, he continues. I know how to be obeyed. I know how to be liked. But when they look at me, they don't see the man before them. They see the absence of the last one. You choose your words with care. They'll adjust, especially if you outlive them. He actually laughs, and that's when you see it. A flicker of doubt behind his eyes, and not the naive kind, something deeper, like he knows how fragile power is, and that he's already relying on people like you to keep it propped up. Lady Zun, meanwhile, retreats from daily affairs. She's still in the palace, still walks the gardens, still receives notes, but no one sees her in court anymore. She says she's tired. You suspect she's finished. You visit her once, uninvited. She's feeding the koi. The fish look bigger, or maybe just older. She doesn't turn when you kneel beside her. He'll be fine, she says, as if you'd asked. I believe that. You reply. She drops a final pellet into the pond. I won't be here forever. You nod. Neither will I. She finally looks at you, and for the first time in your life, you see her not the concubine, not the whisperer, not the engineer of succession, but the girl from the south, orphaned, raised by design, and somehow still standing. She smiles, faint, sad, strong. Then let's leave behind something worth whispering about. She says, Later that week, you are officially promoted. No announcement, of course. Just a change in the way guards nod when you pass. Just a larger chest in your chamber. Just the seal of the Jade Registry handed to you without ceremony. Your new responsibilities. You oversee the entire Eunuch Corps beneath the inner court. You manage postings, oversee ritual compliance, and increasingly advise the emperor directly. One evening, He asks you to read over a new law proposal. You edit it, remove 3 words, add 1 phrase. The next day, the policy is praised for its clarity. Your fingerprints are now on decisions. No one knows you touched mainstream historical fact. Some of China's most powerful eunuchs effectively ran the state behind the curtain. Wei Zhongxian in the late Ming dynasty wielded terrifying control. Others, like Zhang Rang, were revered as wise voices. You try to be neither, just effective. Still, you're not without enemies. Eunuch Wu has returned posted to the Ministry of Rights again. He smiles now, always, says polite things, compliments your robe hem. You don't trust him, but you do respect the fact that he's still here. One night, he leaves a note under your tea bowl, just 5 words. Nice game, same board, again. You sip your tea and leave a single word reply, always, because the game never ends, it just resets. You begin mentoring younger eunuchs, teaching them how to observe, how to survive, how to serve with one eye open and both feet steady. You pass on small truths. Power is a mirror. It reflects nothing you didn't already bring with you. Walk behind, speak second, think first, and sometimes kindness is sharper than cruelty. Use accordingly. You watch as the palace ages. The emperor's beard begins to come in. Ministers retire. One of the koi dies natural causes. Allegedly, you attend the burial. Yes, there's a koi burial protocol. No, you don't cry, not quite. Lady Zun grows frailer. She walks less, sleeps more, but her eyes still ember bright. When she opens them, the last time you visit, she places a hand on yours. Bury me near the lotus gate, she says. You nod. You'll be remembered, she adds. You smile. Not by name, no, she agrees, but by balance. You kept it. That night, you write a single line in your journal. The weight of silence is lighter than the cost of shouting. You sleep and dream of slippers, of jade, of rooms that no longer exist, and of a pond filled with light where nothing is watching because everything already knows. You wake to rain. Soft, steady, and somehow heavier than it ought to be. The kind of rain that doesn't just fall, lingers, soaking not only the stone walkways, but the air itself. As though the entire palace has been dipped in memory. You wrap your robe tighter and light the incense with fingers slower than they used to be. Not from age yet, but from weight. Not the kind you can lift, the kind you carry. Outside footsteps splash lightly. A messenger arrives, bowing so deeply his forehead nearly kisses the flagstones. You already know what he's about to say. Lady Zun has passed, not dramatically, not mysteriously, just quietly in her sleep, like someone who finished writing a story and finally set down the brush. You nod, dismiss the boy, and sit. You do not cry, not right away. You expected this, prepared for it. But grief, like sandalwood, doesn't announce itself. Loudly it seeps in, settles between folds of thought, and waits. The emperor declares a private mourning period. No grand procession, no ceremonial drums, just one white lotus placed each, mourning on the edge of the koi pond. By your hand, she's buried near the lotus gate, as promised. The work doesn't stop. It never does. You oversee the sealing of her chambers. You ensure her private scrolls are archived, coded under Southern cultural initiatives. You personally burn the last 3 letters she left behind, one addressed to you. You don't open it. You don't need to. Instead, you write one of your own. You don't sign it. You fold it, tuck it into the lining of her burial robe, and whisper a promise to the silence. The emperor changes to dot slightly. He speaks slower, frowns more, looks toward the south windows more often than before. One day, he asks you, "Do you think she was the smartest person in the palace?" You think a moment. "No," you say, "just the one who listened best." He nods and says, "Then I should listen more." Weeks pass. A new concubine arrives. Young, nervous. She reminds you of Lady Zun, but only on the surface. You take her under your wing, not out of nostalgia, but because you understand now how long the game is, and how few survive it without guides. She listens. You teach her small things. First, how to hold a wine cup without seeming eager, how to walk past a chamber and not look in, how to smile with sincerity but never invitation, and how to watch, always. Watch. One afternoon, she asks you what Lady Zun was really like. You tell her she was the only person who knew the walls were talking, and dared to talk back. You see fear in her eyes. Good. Fear means caution, and caution means survival. Master Liang retires, eventually, quietly, no fanfare. He simply vanishes from his usual spot by the garden wall. You hear he's moved to a mountain temple near Hangzhou to brew bitter tea and mutter cryptic proverbs to monks who pretend not to understand. He leaves you one gift, a fan, embroidered with cloud patterns, a single line inked across the silk. The sky is heavy, but the wind obeys. You hang it above your desk. Mo Lin, somehow, becomes your closest companion, still rarely blinking, still rarely speaking, but when he does, it's precise. "We've become the ghosts," he says. One evening, as you sip wine beside the koi, you nod, but you don't feel haunted. Not anymore, just present. You begin writing your own records, privately, coded, folded into hollowed bamboo rods, not for fame, not for praise, just so the truth can exist somewhere. Because stories, like incense, don't last unless someone lights them on purpose, and you're not afraid of flame anymore. One morning, the emperor asks you what you'd like when you retire. You blink me. You say, "Retire." He laughs. You've served for 3 reigns. You've earned peace. You consider, then answer, "A small house with a small gate, and someone who still remembers how to boil tea properly." He nods and means it. Months later, you're given exactly that, a residence just beyond the palace wall, modest, clean, 1 room, 1 tree, 1 servant, who used to be a musician but lost her voice to smoke. You spend your mornings trimming the plum tree, your afternoons writing in careful strokes, your evenings remembering. You do not feel empty, you feel quiet, which is rarer than peace. One night, a letter arrives from Mo Lin, only 2 words. It worked. You smile and sleep without dreams. Section 15 years pass not in a rush, but in gentle layers. Like silk folded into a chest for the changing season, your days grow quieter still. No more drums, no scrolls, no desperate summons in the night. Just the soft clip of scissors trimming bonsai, the rhythm of a broom brushing stone, the faint chirp of swallows who've made a home in your eaves. You never marry, of course, never have children, but you find a strange sort of kinship in the apprentice the palace assigns you. He's too tall, too nervous, and always forgets to steep the tea for less than 6 minutes. But he listens. He watches. That's what matters. You train him slowly. Just as you were trained, you teach him to balance a lacquer tray with one hand and interpret a sigh from a senior official with the other. You teach him how not to bow too deeply, because a man who bows too deeply invites people to forget he ever stood upright. And you teach him the most important thing of all. Loyalty isn't about saying yes. It's about knowing when to say nothing. One evening, the emperor, now older, beard streaked with white visits, unannounced. He comes with only one attendant and brings wine, good wine, the kind no one below the rank of minister ever gets. To sip. You sit together beneath your plum tree. He doesn't speak for a while, then finally, do you regret it? You don't need to ask what it is. You take a sip. Let the warmth fill you. No, you say, but I remember every moment. That almost made me. He nods, as if that's the answer he hoped you'd give. I still think about her, he adds. You glance at the pond, where lotus leaves now bloom in slow, bright spirals. So do I, you reply. He stays until the moon rises as he leaves. He presses a scroll into your hand. You're the only one I trust to hold this, he says. You don't open it right away, but you know it's his confession, not of guilt, but of love, of doubt, of hope, that somehow, by stepping away from the absolute, he became a better ruler than if he'd clung to it. You store the scroll in a hollowed bamboo tube behind your plum tree. No lock, no label, just tucked away, where someone might find it long after both of you are smoke and story. And then, slowly, even the apprentice is reassigned. A new post, some promising court arrangement. You send him off with tea eggs, a folded handkerchief, and a note that reads, "Watch everything, but protect what you don't write down." He bows, says nothing. Just like you taught him in the final year of your life, the koi pond outside your wall floods gently during spring. You take this as a sign that things are still moving, still circling. One morning, you dan your old robe gray with white trim, a little faded, still carefully folded on, walk the long road to the lotus gate. One last time, you sit beside it. You rest your back against the stone, and for the first time in what feels like centuries, you sleep. Let's let this story fade now, gently, like footsteps down a quiet corridor. The air is cooler. The palace walls feel softer than they did at the beginning. Your body is no longer tense, your breath not so shallow. The long halls of the forbidden city, with all their secrets, have quieted for now, and you've walked a life inside the silk folds of history, not as a king, not as a soldier, but as something perhaps more enduring, a keeper of balance, a whisper between thrones, a name not remembered on monuments, but echoed in decisions, and quiet nods, and unread scrolls tucked behind plum trees. Maybe your slippers are still there, resting neatly by the koi pond. Maybe the ghost of you still walks through the lotus gate, invisible as ever unburdened, and content so you can let go now. There are no more secrets to guard tonight, no more scrolls to carry, no footsteps to track or faces to memorize, just breath, just the hush of rain somewhere far away, and the gentle scent of incense folding into the corners of the night. Your story is finished, but piecemeal, long, quiet pieces still being written. Close your eyes now. If you haven't already, let the palace disappear behind your lids, and let the stillness take over. You've earned it. Sweet dreams.